Hello there, guys, and welcome back to my channel for what is a positive therapy session because Chelsea won a game of football. Chelsea are through to the quarterfinals of the Carabao Cup. We're, in a way, only 4 games away from winning a trophy. Isn't it mental? They still do 2-legged semi-finals, right? I'm not imagining that. Bertram, first of all, thank you for joining me. It's just going to be me and Bertram today because, unfortunately, a couple of people were not available, and most of the guys were literally just at the game. That was the main issue here. But hey, here we are. Me and Bertram are going to have a great time. Bertram, I'll start with you because you are the master of remembering results. So can you tell me, because it feels like ages ago that we've last played Carabao Cup in December, ergo made it to a quarter-final. When was the last time we did do that?
We played Carabao Cup in December?
Yeah, so like playing quarterfinals.
I think under Tuchel.
We've always been knocked out the last few years, either first or second round we played.
We went far under Tuchel. Second season we went.
Yeah, of course, we got to the final. I'm sure.
Yeah, and before that we went. I think we had Conte. We lost in the semis to Arsenal. So those are the last couple of times.
Yeah, good point. I forgot the Tuchel one. Yeah, of course. But still, the last couple of years, not that great.
Now we went quite early out. Yeah.
Yeah. It is unfortunately what it is, but hey, we scored 2 goals. Benoit Badiashile, Big Ben himself, on his return with a goal. Funnily enough, not with his head, but with his foot. Sterling scoring as well. We'll talk about Sterling's performance because even though he scored a really good goal, I'm still not particularly happy with the man, but we'll get to that a little bit later. I have my personal issue. A few of the substitutions that were happening, I've already been flamed by a few people on Twitter for it. I firmly stand by it. Me and Bertram will discuss it, and we'll see whether you guys in the chat do agree. But yeah, ladies and gentlemen, if you're new here, please be sure to subscribe, hit that like button, and yeah, let's get straight into it. Of course, leave us your thoughts in the live chat, and if you're watching this later on, down in the comments below. But Bertram, how do you feel? 2-0 win over Blackburn. It is a championship team. Kind of just job done, but nothing other than that? Or would you say there was anything particularly positive to take from it other than, I guess, a few returns from injury?
Yeah, well, thank you for having me on as well. I had a nightmare last night when I woke up and thought, we went out. I thought we played Luton in a way. So I dreamed we went out and thought it was annoying because this is a good chance of the trophy. So I'm happy we're through, and I hope too many people don't click off just because I'm the only guest. So it's going to be a good stream anyway. No. My preliminary thoughts are I'm just very happy to get through. I think, when you look at how the results played out both today and the other rounds, I think a lot of good Premier League teams as well, have been knocked out. So I think this was just very good for us to get through. Just a solid performance, a game we got through without any major injuries. As far as I know, we don't have any suspensions as well. So even though we would have liked a 6-0 to really hype us up, I think just solidly getting us through the game, I think that was decent. I was very happy to see Badiashile back. Reece James, I almost forgot how good he was. Some of those darting runs, some of the balls from Enzo as well, which we'll get into later. But I think very positive to move on, even though, as someone said in the chat before, bang average. But I think whenever we play Carabao Cup or just Cup games in general, we never win like 4-0. We always win like 2-0 at home and move on. So this is the Chelsea we remember, and just happy we made it through.
There you go. Yeah, it's a tough one because obviously on the one hand you're like, wins have come so far and few between for Chelsea for a long while now. That on the one hand I'm like, I don't want to sit here and complain too much when we win a game 2-0, despite the fact that we've played a championship team. But at the same time, I'm like, these are the types of games where you can get yourself some confidence, where you can build some momentum and take that into a tough run of fixtures that we have got coming up, starting with Spurs on Monday, obviously. So it's a tricky one, especially when you consider the fact that it was pretty much our strongest 11 that was fit and available, with maybe 1 or 2 exceptions in terms of Caicedo and Thiago Silva. Otherwise, it was pretty much the team that's been playing for the most part. With Mudryk now out injured as well. Broja is still out. There's a fair few players still missing. Chilwell, obviously, you're like, this is kind of our best team. While Blackburn, on the other hand, they rested their top goal scorer, their main striker. They didn't even bring him to London. And they also had a super young, I think, centre-back playing. Like, they they rotated more than we did. And to then not just about, but win the game 2-0, both of them coming through mistakes by Blackburn. Sure, we should have had a penalty, but they should have also had a penalty. They were 1-on-1 with the keeper 10 seconds into the second half. They were 1-on-1 with the keeper, or nearly 1-on-1 with the keeper in the last minute of the game. It should certainly be better. But I'm still going to take the positive of a win. I'd much rather play not great and win like today than play well like we did against Arsenal and bottle a 2-0 lead and draw 2-2. Do you know what I mean? So, like, yes, we can say the performance wasn't good enough or wasn't great, but I'd still rather complain about it this way around than I would, like I sat here after the Arsenal game, just absolutely losing my mind because I'm like, why on earth can we not win a game of football? But when you see the team that we come up with, was it kind of what you expected? I think the biggest shock was probably that Petrovic still isn't getting a game.
Yeah, well, I saw that as well. I was really excited for him to get his first game, just at least to see what he's about. But, we gave him again another game. And, fairness to Pochettino if he thinks he's number one. And, Sanchez wants to play every game. But, I think right now we're in this limbo where, we're thinking, is Sanchez the better goalkeeper? Is he Chelsea level? But I suppose, if we're giving him enough games to, prove it, I suppose it is what it is. But it kind of, makes you think, why did we buy Petrovic? What is the point? If he's going to play, 2 FA Cup games, perhaps, that's it. But other than Sanchez, where I would have played Petrovic, I think it was a pretty decent lineup. I was happy again, as I touched upon before, to see Benoit back and Reece James as well. I think it didn't surprise me that we went all out because I was happy we did it. But in a sense, I think it was interesting to see that how much Poch prioritized it. And in a sense, I think sometimes that can end up having the effect which we saw where, even though it wasn't the most spectacular game we saw, I think it was still a very professional performance in a sense. I think Sterling and, the likes of Sterling, the likes of Enzo, Disasi even, they kind of knew which level, even though I thought Disasi was quite poor, they kind of knew the level they needed to play at to just kind of get through the game. I think perhaps if we'd used 1 or 2 more, unexperienced players to, get their, or to, win their place back, if we play like a Mudryk, for example, we might, in a sense, have got something better out of them. We might have scored 2 or 3 more goals, but I think at the end of the day, you really can't complain with both the team. I think it was very professional. I think, in a way, I understand the fact that they're professional footballers. I don't know if this will make sense, but I don't know how motivated they are for this game. In a way, I think so. For example, when we watch this performance, and as KD says in the chat, if we meet a Premier League team, if we meet a Premier League team in the next round, we're not going to play the same way. At least I hope not, because then we're going to get smashed. But I think the motivation,
at least in the first half, like we pressed harder today than in any game I can really remember in the Premier League this season. Now, obviously, that is because Blackburn are a team that do play out from the back, which most lesser teams don't do against us. But obviously, they are still a lesser team, so they are more likely and more easily to, press and to stop from playing out than, say, for example, an Arsenal are, right? So it's kind of like this weird mix where we were actually aggressive, but it was quite easy to be aggressive against them in the grand scheme of things. Like, that's how we scored our second goal. We could have had a few more moments like that. I see what you're saying. At the same time, when you look at the team, you can say Poch went really strong, but how many other options did we have? Sure, you could play Martin on the wing and you could play Alex Matos, or is it Alex? I think it's Alex Matos.
Yeah.
Or you touched the Mudryk. Mudryk is kind of, for me, the only one, but then I'm like, the way he played the last time he did get a start, was it against Brentford on the weekend? I think so. He doesn't deserve another start. I'll be perfectly honest with you. Like, he didn't, right? And then you're like, you don't have anyone to play instead of Jackson. Mudryk isn't fit, so you're like, you either play Martin and Mudryk, or you go with Sterling and Palmer. You don't really have another 10 fit because Nkunku isn't fit, Chukwuemeka isn't fit. Who else are you going to play there if not Palmer, if Palmer isn't playing centrally? Enzo came back. His wife just gave birth to a second son. He also had a small injury. Caicedo got a rest. Okay, that's something. And Colwell got a rest. But otherwise, Badiashile making this return, it's the Petrovic one that I really find a bit questionable. Because, like I say, for the most part, I'm like, he didn't really have many other options. Because would I really have wanted him to start Washington today in a game that, in my opinion, we had to win? No.
That would have made sense.
Exactly. Or like Alex Matos. Like I say, Mudryk would have been fine, sure. But the Petrovic one does confuse me because, and I don't want to go to the two extremes, right? But we paid like what 15 million for him, and certain individuals try to sell us as, Chelsea believe he could challenge Sanchez. Chelsea think he's amazing. Our goalkeeping coach and the manager clearly don't think so. Because, the Wimbledon one, I let them off a little bit because they weren't sure whether he'd have the work permit in time. And then he did in the end, and he was on the bench, but they didn't know, so they couldn't necessarily prepare with him. So that's fair enough. And I also understand that the second round that we played in the third round of the Cup, we played against Brighton. I understand that you want to go with your first choice goalie here. But you're playing against the championship team now. Now, imagine Sanchez gets injured. If we don't even believe that Petrovic is good enough to play against Blackburn, what on earth happens if Sanchez picks up an injury? Like, to me, it's crazy talk, and it's crazy. It's just a crazy action, in my opinion, to obviously we all hope that Sanchez doesn't get injured, and he most likely won't, even though, touch wood, hopefully I don't jinx it, especially with our injury record. But imagine it does happen, and then Petrovic's first game isn't like an easy Blackburn that he can prepare, being told 2 days before you're going to start. No, the next game could be Sanchez gets injured the training session before the game, and Petrovic has to start against Spurs. Is that a situation you want to be in? That you want the goalie to be in? I just don't understand why that's how you choose it, how you'd go about it. Yeah, okay, you want to go with your strong team, and it's a big cup for us because that's one way to get into Europe for us after the league campaign has been so poor. But don't you see that way a little bit as well? Bertram, I'll get to a conversation of what does it mean, how good or bad is he? But in terms of just even if we take that out of it, if he is ever needed, surely it would have been better if he had a cup game at least in his legs or hands for a goalkeeper.
Yeah, I think in Denmark we have FC Copenhagen, who's kind of in the same situation. They in the cup had to play against my local team, which I play for, and they're I think 4 divisions down, and they still played their first choice goalkeeper. And a lot of the journalists, they asked why are you playing your first choice goalkeeper? You have a 19-year-old goalkeeper on the bench. Wouldn't this be valuable experience? And he kind of explained their head coach that our goalkeeper has the mentality. He wants to play every game. He wants to keep clean sheets. He wants to use every game for learning, exercising, stuff like this. I think it could be the same with Sanchez. Just to play devil's advocate, I think as well, perhaps could be a way of showing Petrovic that nothing's going to be handed out. I still think personally I would have, given him at least a chance to show himself, because as you said, stuff can happen. He can, just be thrown in the deep end. For example, if Sanchez falls down the steps at the hotel on Monday, and then Petrovic will have to start against Tottenham away, it would have been nice for him to just have had one game in. I think it doesn't make the biggest difference, other than the fact he might have liked it to be that way. But I think I can understand it a bit. I think it's not that mental, but I would still have liked to see Petrovic, because I think as you touched upon before, certain individuals have sold us on the fact that he should be quite good. And it is, also healthy to have competition in your squad. But perhaps I think it's probably just a symbol from Pochettino to show that, we take this seriously. We're going to play our first choice goalkeeper as a kind of a symbol to the rest of the team as well.
Yeah, I get where you're coming from, and I like the comparison with Copenhagen here. But I would say there is a bit of a difference in if you have an academy 19-year-old backup goalkeeper who is, first of all, very far from being completed in his own development, but also is from the academy anyway, can probably play for the second team in the under-21s or whatever. I think people will sometimes forget that Petrovic isn't 19. He isn't even 21. He's 24. He's just a year younger than Sanchez. He shouldn't be in a position where he's but the first choice goalie wants to play every game. It should be a competition for the goalie. Let's not forget, when we signed Sanchez, he was brought in to be competition for Kepa, not to be the guaranteed first choice goalie that no matter what plays every game. Obviously that then changed once Kepa left and we signed Petrovic. But if you spend 15 million on a goalkeeper, on a 20 at the time 23, now 24-year-old goalkeeper, I don't think you sell them the gig as by the way, you're not going to play your first game until the third round of the FA Cup, and even that you have to hope the manager actually fancies it. If he was told that before, he might if not even come. Do you know what I mean? I don't know, right? But to me, this is. But what does he tell me about how good he is? Because if he was good, if the goalkeeping staff and Poch felt that he could push Poch, could push Sanchez, because again, that was the initial plan, that Sanchez would be there to push and give Kepa competition. So clearly in the ownership, the recruitment teams, and the management's minds, competition in the goalkeeping spot is a good thing. So then not purely just never playing the second choice goalkeeper shows the opposite, though. And then I have to ask myself, how good is he? Because if he's not picked against Blackburn, when is he ever going to play? And then I'm like, well, what a waste of 15 million then. It's just like, I ask myself the question, what's the point? You could have, you could have just found a 33-year-old free agent goalkeeper who could have done the exact same job. You didn't have to pay 15 million for that, and someone that potentially could know the league, that if they have to step in on super short notice, are experienced enough to actually do so, which I doubt Petrovic. You get where I'm coming from. Like, I understand fair enough. I think it's not mental, but I just still don't see the logic in it.
I see where you're coming from, but I think the thing is, we don't know where Pochettino is coming from. So, we don't see him in training. I think, if I don't remember too, wrong, I think when he was a manager at Spurs, he played Michel Vorm in quite a lot of games as well, also Premier League games, instead of Lloris. So I think if there was something, I think at PSG as well. So I think Poch isn't, for example, like Klopp, he has, Alisson for the Champions League and for the Premier League, perhaps some of the big FA Cup games as well, but it's always the Kelleher guy when it's the Carabao Cup.
Same with at Man City, Ortega plays every cup game.
Exactly. And I don't think Poch is that rigorous, because I'm pretty sure Warren played a lot of games. So I think the thing with Petrovic is we don't know. We don't know if he's good enough. We don't know. So this is just purely speculative. But I think he could perhaps – it would make sense in my head that you've got this guy over from the States. You've got him training. Sanchez – right now, when they were both signed, he would probably be ahead. The fact that he's played for Brighton, the fact that he speaks Spanish, he knows half of our defense. He's played with half of our defense. So, he was quite far ahead already. Exactly. He played with one of our midfielders, he's played at the bridge. I think that would help. So I think perhaps, getting Petrovic over, his first big move, to Europe.
It's November 1st now, bro. It's not like he came last week.
But, things take different time. I think, as you said, Wimbledon would have made a lot of sense. Brighton maybe not have made that much sense. Then we've got these Premier League games. Then we have a big game all of a sudden. I think just poor timing. But I have no doubt in my mind that we will play him. He will get a chance. Because Pochettino has done it before. But I think what we're looking at now would make sense in my head if it's just, very, very poor timing. If you look at it purely based on these things, because the games you would have got.
Like, is the championship team really too high to give a 24-year-old goalie a chance? If you believe in him in any sort of way, which Chelsea try to brief in the media that they do. That's the weird part. Like, if they always claim clear number 2 will play when he gets the chance, but that wasn't how it was sold to us. It was sold to us as he can compete and he is here to compete with Sanchez. And that's simply not happening. Even though all of your explanations are reasonable, I still think it tells me that he's not that good. Otherwise, he would have been given a chance. Maybe that's
we'll hope he is
simpler than it is, but I think that you are right. We don't know, but if it shows towards anything, it's that he is not that good. Otherwise, he would play.
But I think if you look purely on this game, I think it would be a mistake to look at it based on the opposition. So it's not that he didn't play against Blackburn. It is we didn't throw him in a what. It sounds weird because we're Chelsea, but we didn't throw him in a 5th round Carabao Cup game where we, potentially could get into a quarterfinal for, probably the only piece of silverware we can challenge for this season. So that would be the only explanation. It's not that he's not good enough to play it. It is the only thing that would make sense in my mind is just to, communicate out that, giving him his first game here, even though it's not as high profile, it's still quite high profile. Because had we gone out today, would have been terrible. But I still get where you're coming from.
But has Sanchez done enough to seem that much more likely to stop that from happening? Like, there was also a case today where he nearly cost us a goal again by being too slow or incapable of passing the ball out from the back properly. Like,
I think we'll get into
every game now. It's mental.
Are we gonna get into his rating now then?
Yes, just going to get into it. I wanted to highlight 2 more comments here. One is by Darren Lineker, who said we need to win the game or needed to win the game. And I agree with that. But that's kind of where I'm coming from in terms of I agree. And that's why if I'm told Petrovic isn't that good, I have no problem with Sanchez starting. But as the club did brief us that he is good, I don't understand. Like, then it shouldn't, going from Sanchez to him shouldn't be a big enough drop off that you're like, oh, now we're concerned that we won't win the game. Jonas here says, I think the only reason we have this conversation about Petrovic is because we don't fully trust Sanchez. don't think we would have made a big deal out of Petrovic not starting today otherwise. Maybe that is also the point, but that's a problem in and of itself that none of us really think that Sanchez is quite good enough. Do any of us really think he's that much better than Kepa? He has different strength, and some long shots are going to be less likely to go in. But my guy's giving the ball to the opponent every game at the moment, near our own box. That is a liability. No one can tell me, we are buzzing with this, and this is the new Petr Cech. It clearly isn't. So, yeah. But yeah, let's not get too hung up on it. I didn't even want to go into it for that long, but hey, it sparked the conversation. So let's get into Sanchez's rating. Because as much as he nearly, cost us a goal by taking a bit too long with playing the ball out and it got intercepted as he passed it, and not the best distribution, but then again, the ones that didn't come off were difficult ones and ones that I'm happy he tries, like diagonal ones to say Cucurella or whatever that he's trying to play into his run. I don't mind when he tries that. Sure, they don't always come off, but when they do, they open the game up tremendously. So I have no problem with you trying that. And then I have to mention the save at the very end. That's a really good save. Now, sure, Blackburn in front of goal are absolutely awful, as proven by that, chance 10 seconds into the second half, and then obviously that last one. But still, that was a good save. So in total, I'd probably give him a 7, but realistically, he barely had anything to do, if we're being totally honest. So maybe even a 7 is kind of generous, but I think a 7 is all right. How many saves did he make according to this? Well, that save at the end was his only save. So maybe I would even say 6.5, but it was a good save. And even if it didn't matter, because even if they got a 2-1, I don't think there was enough time left that we would have thrown the game. But yeah, I think a 7 is still okay. What would you say, mate?
Yeah, I'd be furious if you put him down for not making saves from shots that didn't come. As I think a 7 probably makes sense. The fact that he did save it at the end was a very, very, very good save. I think the distribution part is quite worrying to me because I don't know. I had this idea that he was this great ball playing goalkeeper, and it's turned out he's been a very average ball playing goalkeeper. So I hope it is something he can work on, because I think even though I think we've seen him, be decent over these last couple of weeks, minus the Arsenal game, shot stopping wise. I think if he, clear up his distribution and didn't have these, brain bleeding kind of moments, I think there's still a very good goalkeeper there. The thing with Sanchez is, I think when I watch him, he has this tendency to almost kind of when you're a goalkeeper, you sometimes cheat. So when you feel like if someone's coming one-on-one and they shoot, you kind of, when it's a penalty, you kind of guess which side it is. And sometimes it comes off, and he did that today, and he's done it a lot of times. He did it against Brighton, the cup as well. He has this tendency to guess, and right now, he's guessing right. He has made a lot of saves, a lot of very good saves from guessing. Saves that he probably wouldn't have made if he'd stood up and kind of tried to react to them. So I think right now, I don't know. There are kind of two things to this. So either he's very, very good at predicting where people are going to shoot, and he's very good at cheating, or at some point it's going to go the other way, and he kind of gets wrong 1 or 2 times.
I think there was already a few occasions where he did exactly what you're talking about, and he went the wrong way. At the same time, when the opponent is really close, and you are as a goalie, I mean, you will know much better as you are a goalie. But once the opponent is even closer than a penalty, then you're like, well, if I just react to what he does, unless he shoots it straight at me, there is no chance I save it. So I might as well try to read where he's going to go and see if I can pull off a monster save. If he goes the other corner, it is what it is. Likelihood is, if I don't move early, he's going to score anyway. So I understand the concept, and and sometimes there was a few occasions where Kepa did that as well every now and again, and there was often occasions where Chelsea fans were furious at him. How is he going the other way? I'm like, he's just trying to predict it to give himself a chance, but like you say, that can also go the other way sometimes. All right.
And it will at some point, but we need to, I think he is quite good at it, so we'll kind of have to balance it.
Yeah, exactly. On the line, in terms of saving shots, I don't think there's anything I don't think we've conceded a goal yet where I'm like, maybe one of the ones at West Ham where I'm like, he could have done a bit better to the far post potentially. But in general, we haven't really conceded a goal where I'm like, oh yeah, you should have saved that as a normal save. It's more of a situation where he passed it to the opponent, or he failed to come for a cross properly and either missed it or did whatever. That's happened. But in terms of not saving a shot that he should save, that hasn't really happened to him. So, from that perspective, he's kind of done the role reverse. He's done an Una reverse on the whole fan base, because what we were all talking about in the summer, I wasn't quite on board, but what we were all talking about in the summer is how great you touched on it earlier, how great he is on the ball, but that, sometimes the shot stopping can leave a bit to be desired outside of long shots. And so far, it's kind of been the exact opposite of that, which is kind of interesting. But
yeah,
sometimes that's how football goes. But let's go to the comeback man. One of the comeback men, but the one that got a goal. And Big Benoit Badiashile, what a wonderful sight it is to have him back. This is no criticism towards Levi Colwill, and I hope for the love of God that as the season goes on, Badiashile and Colwill will play together, because I do feel they are the best too. But oh my God, it was so good to have him back. His passing, his defending, the way he's calm, but also strong, the way he's, isn't just, sitting off because I'm so calm, but also aggressive when he needs to be. I love him as a defender. And for that as your first game since early May, haven't played a single minute of anything, very impressive performance. Obviously, the ball just kind of failed him, but then he took it well. So I'm not going to go crazy over the goal itself. But I think defensively, especially compared to Disasi, I think Badiashile looked miles better than Disasi today in every situation, aerially, on the ground, in pace, in covering spaces. To me, he was really, really good because of the opponent and because that it wasn't an overall fantastic performance. I don't think I'm going to go higher than a 7.5. But I will say 7.5. Maybe I could do an 8. I could be convinced to an 8. Jay in the chat said 8. So maybe if Bertram goes for an 8, I might give it to him. But so far, I'll go for a 7.5. What did you make of Badiashile? And do you agree with, the sentiment that it's kind of impressive that after so long out to play the way he did?
I'm so happy to see him back. I agree with the sentiment as well. I would give him an 8. I thought, again, very... tactically very well from Poch to, have this game where he could put him into the deep end, and we didn't play him against Brentford. I think he was very good, very happy to see him back. There's just something when he has it, he just seems so composed. When we watch Disasi, it's so rash sometimes. He's just a very composed defender. Even in front of goal, it was quite a composed finish, I think. But yeah, to come in at the deep end after, since being out from May, I thought he played decently. I think he got the goal overall. He was solid. They didn't really have a chance until he came. Yeah, they had one. I think, was it him they spun for they had like a one-on-one at, just at the start of the second half. I think in my head it was Disasi spun. They spun one of the.
No, I'm pretty sure it was Disasi.
Because I thought it was Disasi as well.
Yeah.
But other than that, Badiashile, he couldn't really do anything on it. I think just because of the fact that he got the goal fair. That gives him, the 1.5 up from the 6, the average. So I think 7.5 is fair, and I think it's very good to have him back. And him and Colwill in defense as well. We're gonna make 0 passes. We're gonna make 100% pass completion out the back. It's gonna be very good to have both of them in.
There you go. I couldn't agree more. Fantastic. 2 7.5 ratings then. For Benoit Badiashile. Let's get to Disasi then. I really wasn't that happy with him today. Honestly, I have to say. There was the mistake at the very end that led to that one Sanchez chance that we've just been talking about. That was really poor defending. And even though his pass completion is 95%, I felt there was quite a lot of passes where I'm like, I'm honestly shocked at that he apparently only misplaced 8 passes. I mean, I guess 8 is still a certain number. Obviously, he attempted 132. So not completing 8 of 132 isn't in the grand scheme of things a bad thing. But I just feel like he sometimes misplaced passes where I'm like, what are you doing? There was a sequence where he tried 3 times in a row, tried to pass it to Enzo, and they got intercepted every time. I'm like, what are you doing now? There was another occasion, like against Brentford, and this time as a centre-back, not a right-back. He just forgot about the man at the far post and had no idea they were there. These are worrying signs. He had started the season off struggling a bit, then found some good form. But now the last 2 games, I've really not been happy. And I don't think today, I'm going to give him a 4. Is that too harsh? Maybe. Looking at his stats aren't bad at all. 3 out of 3 ground duels, 1 out of 2 tackles, 3 out of 4 long balls, which is really good. Like I say, the passing accuracy is 95%, but I still was that. Maybe I should say 4.5 or something, but I really wasn't happy. I really was not happy. But what about you, Bertram?
I think a 4 would be quite harsh. I'd be inclined to give him a 5. I think the thing is, he made the mistake at the end, perhaps even made a mistake for where he got spun on the halfway line where it was too rash. I still think, it's not. I think otherwise than that, he was decent. It's just because of the fact, Badiashile, he had 1 very good moment, and Disasi will have 2 very bad, and that kind of, substitutes itself in fact of the rating. I think he was just pretty average over the fact that he had, these 2 mistakes. So I think a 5 would be fair. I think a 4, I've seen worse performances. I've seen worse performances this season as well, maybe even from Disasi. I just think he's very rash. I think he's like a poor man's Rudiger sometimes. I think there are certain games that are tailored to him. So I think when we play, some of the teams, we played the Fulham game, the Burnley game, I thought even against Arsenal, he was quite decent. So, these games he's been quite good. But sometimes he has these games in where he kind of looks out of place in a Chelsea back line almost. He kind of looks like Bambi on ice in a way, like Papi Djilabadji for that one game. I think for today, he was very average, but did make 2 mistakes. And we still kept a clean sheet. Might be, down to Robert Sanchez, but still kept a clean sheet. So I think I'd give him a 5. You're muted, bro.
Thank you. I think I might have to push mine up to a 4.5, and then I'd just give you the 5, because if I gave it a poll, seemingly the chat is clearly going to side with the 5. I get where you're coming from, but to me, it's not just the moment of mistakes and the goal for Badiashile. To me, it's just like looking at both of them. Badiashile's passing is better. Badiashile's passing is quicker. Badiashile seemed to be positioned better. He just looks a better defender to me. Just looking at them, I just thought Badiashile looked a lot better than Disasi did. But I will admit, maybe a 4 was.
I agree.
There you go. Nice. Let's get to Reece James then. The other comeback man. He posted on his socials like first start in 3 months. Glad to be back. Reece, we are glad to have you back. I did find the way he was used today somewhat strange, because sometimes he made those insane overlapping runs at like real impressive speed, if I'm being honest, considering how little he's played and stuff. And those have happened a few times, and it was dangerous on every single occasion. But there was also moments where we attacked quite, high as a team. But Reece James was sat next to Disasi, almost like a wide centre-back or whatever. So that's kind of interesting. Maybe it was to like help his fitness a little bit. Sometimes you go, sometimes you stay, to like almost catch a breather or whatever. Maybe that's the idea, because he hasn't played that much. Would, I guess, have some sort of logic to it. And you can still see a little bit of rust from him. Sometimes he had underhit a ball. Sometimes he, I don't know, took a second. There was also an occasion where he missed the guy at the far post behind him, where he was like, oh, who's there? And then thankfully the Blackburn messed it up from there, but still. But when he makes those runs, and then the fact that he goes for that volley, and it's just, what a player. It could have scored as well. I think with a little bit less rust, with a bit more game time, he might even score one of those 2 big chances or good chances that he had. I think as a comeback game, I think a 7 is a warranted rating, I would say. Butchum, would you agree?
Yeah, I was between a 7 or a 6.5 for me. I think just above average. I think he was very impressive in the first half, less so in the second.
To be fair, he only played 15 minutes of the second half as well.
Yeah, that is correct. I was thinking that, him and Enzo as well are going to be a very dangerous combination. They had a couple of very, very good through balls. Enzo to Reece James. It was very interesting to see as well. I think this is the first time we've played with two real fullbacks under Pochettino, if I'm not completely mistaken, where we haven't had 3 center backs in line. So perhaps it could have been something with Cucurella had a couple of times as well when it wasn't as good as well. But he bombed up, and then Reece James maybe was told to sit just to see how it worked. But very happy to see him back. I think he looked much leaner than he has these last couple of months. I think when I watched him against Liverpool, he didn't look as lean as he did
even
today.
Compared to Liverpool? Okay, that's interesting, because I do agree that he looks leaner, but I felt he looked leaner since coming back from like the holidays or since pre-season, if I'm honest. But maybe even more.
First half Liverpool, he was quite decent. I think he looked a bit lethargic the second, from what I remember. Yeah. But especially that kind of period, I think. But he did. But yeah, as you touched upon before, he looked rapid for some of these through runs, and very tough to get off the ball as well. Barge off. So I think it's going to be a real asset for us when he comes back. I think it would have been, if he had scored that, it was quite a good shot as well. Flat just past the post. I think that would have been the perfect way to crown his comeback. But for me, I think between, as JP and Big say in the chat, it'd be between a 6.7 or a 6.5, or a 7. And since we've won, he's come back. He isn't hopefully injured, and we can wait for another week of social media posts. I'd give him a 7.
Yeah, there you go. I was thinking somewhere in that region as well, between a 6 and a 7, somewhere there. And then I was like, okay, because it was a comeback game, I'm going to give him the 7. That was kind of where I was coming from. But there you go. Let's move over to Marco Cucurella. And Bertram, I'll let you go first, because for me, Cucurella's been really impressive every time he's got the chance to play these last few weeks. Did you think he continued that today? Or because it was an opponent that is lesser, then he needs to do a bit more going forward, and you can't just be good defensively and be praised for that?
Well, it's interesting. You thought he was good defensively. I thought he wasn't quite good today in any aspect, if I'm honest. Really? I think he had one in the first half when it was quite easy to get past him. One of the Blackburn players, Moet or whatever he's called, he kind of quite easily dribbled past him, and it was quite a big chance for them. If in reality, they had a couple of attacks down his side in the second half as well, if I recall correctly. So I think defensively he wasn't all that impressive, and offensively he didn't really do anything of note. So I'd give him under average rating. I think I'd give him a 5.5 almost. I think he's almost the type of player who is better he plays better when we play a better opponent. Mm-hmm. So I think he'd be better against, even though it sounds kind of mental, he'd be better against the Bukayo Saka than he would be against one of these players. And I can't really explain why, because when we watched him, against Arsenal, he was a revelation, but he was very aggressive in that game. And maybe he wasn't quite switched on or something like that. Maybe it goes back to the motivation point as before. But I think today he lacked a lot defensively and didn't really do anything offensively. And for that, I'd actually give him a 5. I think Disasi was a 5 for that moment of lack concentration. I think Cucurella gave away 2 quite big chances, well, 1 in each half. So for me, I'd give him a 5. But I think he has been quite impressive these last couple of games. So it was sad for me to see.
It's very interesting because honestly, I mean, I just don't remember where he got spun. It was interesting. Obviously, I guess we are influenced by those things because my commentator just kept talking about how no one's getting past Cucurella, which is kind of interesting. I thought he was good, honestly, defensively. Going forward, there's no debate. His crossing is poor. As Supreme says here, his crossing just isn't it. I mean, he only attempted 2. And to be fair, one of them did find their teammate, which probably, when you look through the rest of the team, I doubt anybody else has a 50% crossing accuracy. Yeah. And even Reece James. Like, Reece James played worse crosses today than Cucurella did. Cucurella didn't try a lot, but none of them went as bad as Reece's ones, I must say. I probably would have gone, honestly, the only part I wasn't sure about yet is how I would rank it, how I would rate it in terms of, because of the opponent, then I need a bit more from you going forward. Especially, like, if he was just the one to stay all game long and Reece was the one bombing up, then I don't think it would be a conversation. But because it interchanged, well, then Cucurella also has to do a bit more going forward. At the same time, I think defensive situations where he did have moments where he struggled, to me, that was pretty much always when Sterling couldn't be bothered to help defensively. And Cucurella was 1 against 2 on each of those occasions. I mean, there was one occasion where they ran through it. You could even see Sanchez screaming at Sterling because he just let people run past him as if they weren't there. So I would probably have gone 6.5 maybe, but maybe that would have been a bit high. So I'll say 6 and we'll give him an overall of a 5.5. And we move up the pitch to Leslie Ugochukwu. And that is another really interesting moment for me because in the first half, towards the end of the first half, he had this really nice moment of dribble. I was like, oh, look at you go. But before that, I was like, Ugochukwu is such a strange player. Every time he's played for us so far, I sit there after the game, I'm like, I've barely even noticed him. And then I look at the stats, and like, his passing is good. His tackles are usually reasonably good numbers. And I'm like, how is it that I barely notice you? Or when I notice Ugochukwu, it's mostly running after players and not getting there. And I'm not even trying he's bad, but that's somehow what springs to my mind most. But then I saw someone post on Twitter at halftime saying that Reece and Ugochukwu were his best players in that first half. And I was like,
I saw that as well. And
I was like, what? Like, and I'm not even saying necessarily that they are wrong, because I couldn't even say that Ugochukwu was bad, not by any means. But he just didn't really spring out at me. But like I say, when I look at his stats, passing accuracy 93%, 55 out of 59 passes. So you can't complain about that. 1 successful dribble, we touched on that. Apparently a successful cross, which I can't remember. 1 out of 2 long balls. Didn't try a lot, but 50% is not too bad. Tackles 2 out of 4. Ground duels 5 out of 9. Just over half. It's not amazing, but as long as you have over half in terms of ground duels as a midfielder, I think you're all right. So I don't know. It's weird. I'm also not sure how to treat him because obviously he's 19. And in a way, I want to treat him as this young kid that's getting chances. But at the same time, like, well, he's played a season of high level in Liga. And, yes, he's only 19, but look at Gusto as well. So if I judge him by that, I think it's probably about a 6. Purely because he didn't stand out anymore to me. Maybe I'm being harsh and maybe I need to try to pay more attention to him. But like I say, what I feel is like either I don't notice you or I see you running after players and not getting there. So it's a bit of a strange one. Where do you stand on that with Leslie Uwajuba?
I remember, I think it was the last cup game, maybe, when we were talked about him as well, where I thought he was quite good. Where you also said you hadn't noticed him. I think...
Yeah, it's genuinely a me issue, not a Nuguchukwu issue. I'm very aware.
But for this game, I agree. I didn't really notice him, but the thing is, I really, really like him. I think the profile of player he is, I really do like him. And he had one very good tackle, and he had one as well that got blown for a free kick, where I think it was a decent tackle. The thing with Nuguchukwu, which you touched upon before, it's kind of weird because I'm older than him, and if I played center midfield for us tonight, I would think, okay, fair enough. 19 years of age, but the thing is, I think he's just a very solid player, and a player who could grow into the role. I think for his performance today, I think 6. I think a 6 is almost tailor made for him. I think he didn't really do anything wrong. Didn't really do anything that was that good. He had one moment of good link up play with Palmer late in the first half, where he kind of went through. But I think we're just blessed to have a very, very solid, 6 that we can put in. I'm interested the fact you touched upon him running after players. I haven't really noticed it. I thought today mostly when Blackburn had chances, when they had the ball, it primarily came like through the wings because they had it locked down in the middle. So it could maybe have been that. But I think for me today, I'd give him a 6. Very good. I'm very happy we got him. And just, overall a very solid player and someone who can grow into, just a good squad player for us at least.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, one last thing on Nuguchukwu. Someone please get him a shirt a size smaller. Because it looked like he was wearing a potato bag. It was a bit strange. Because he's massive, but maybe...
Was it that bad?
Yeah, I don't know. I haven't seen the guy with his top off, obviously. So maybe he's just very tall but quite skinny. So maybe that's why. But the shirt looked so baggy today compared to everybody else. Found that quite interesting. Let's get over to Enzo Fernandez. And to me, I thought he was really good. But then I saw people... They replied to my tweets at halftime, literally picking him out as one of the ones that were bad in the first half. And I was just baffled as to what game they were watching. Because to me, he was great. I'll go into more detail of what I thought after. But where do you stand on that Enzo debate today?
Well, the thing is, Chelsea Twitter can be one of the most confusing places, of all time to try and understand. I've seen them as well. I thought he was amazing. I've seen, when the game's been done, countless FOTMOB screenshot ratings where you just see the blue star 9.6, 9.5. I thought he was amazing. I thought this was quite a breath of fresh air to see him because it was like the Enzo of last season, and I think it could have something to do with the role we gave him because the Enzo of last season came deep and just kept spamming these long through balls, and they worked every time. Reece James had a lot. Sterling had one as well. Palmer had a couple. He was paying these balls, and it was beautiful.
5 seconds into the game, he played one to Jackson.
Exactly, and the weight of pass that this guy has, it's almost been a shame. I almost thought that he didn't have it in his locker anymore. And I think it's very weird that Poch, in a way, has, changed it up because it seems that when we're building up with Caicedo, it's him that gets the ball deeper. And then, Enzo kind of, falls out in a way. So I'd hope, for the next couple of games to see Enzo more on the ball because, we've just seen the passes he's made. They're outrageous. But the thing today is he had the good passes, but he won almost every duel as well. He looked a physical presence today. Yeah. Defensively, physically came in, won the ball, proved that, even though he cost 105 million euros, that he's still able to kind of swing his weight about. So I think today he's up there for my man of the match. But rating wise,
Same.
I'd probably go an 8.5. I thought he was very, very good.
Okay, there you go. It's an interesting one. You touched on it, by the way. I'm not sure if you saw the stats or if you just were this spot on. He won 11 out of 13 ground duels. Again, compared to Tuco's 5 out of 9, 11 out of 13. To me, it honestly felt like today that Enzo seriously thrived off the fact that this was not a Premier League game, but a cup game with a lower league referee. Because they let way more go than normally happens in the Premier League nowadays. There was way more physical challenges that the ref just let go. And to me, it felt like Enzo felt transported back to his Argentina days. He to me, it looked like he, became alive. As the longer that went on, the more he was allowed to be a bit physical. But also, he's still good enough at the dark arts that every time he got touched, he still made sure he got the free kick every single time, though. Like screaming around, jumping in the air every time. Like proper Argentinian midfielder. I love it. And someone said here, gave the ball away more than usual. He completed 102 out of 110 passes. And unlike Disasi, who plays 10-yard passes, Enzo was pinging them. Like, you can't have a go at someone not completing 8 passes, my God. I thought he was phenomenal. I probably wouldn't go as high as you did with an 8.5. I'd probably go for an 8. And therefore, ladies and gentlemen, I think it's about time I put a poll in the chat and give you the option to vote between an 8 and an 8.5. Seemingly, some of you will think that is too high. Seemingly, some of you will think that is reasonable. So I'll give you the vote between an 8 and an 8.5. Please, once it is there in a couple of seconds, please place your votes and we'll go with your guys' rating in the end. Let's move high up the pitch. Conor Gallagher, for different reasons, but in a way also very similar reasons. As to Cucurella, I felt today you saw why Gallagher is good when we play good teams and not so great when we don't play good teams. Would you agree with that assessment?
Yeah, I think that makes sense. I think it was more obvious for Cucurella, but it seems like whenever Gallagher hits too much on the ball, he kind of doesn't really know what to do with it. I think he had a couple in the second half as well, where it was him and Sterling through, and he kind of made the wrong decision a couple of times.
Mm.
But maybe that's why we have these issues against low block teams, because we have the players who play best against top level teams. But I'd agree with that. I think today he was pretty average. I think he had one backheel pass, which was quite beautiful toward the end of the game. But other than that, I thought he was quite average. I think for me, I'd probably give him a 6.5, just a little bit above average. I think I would give him higher than Cucurella because he didn't really make any mistakes as such. But that is the game for these more offensive-minded players.
So you'd say 5.5?
I'd give him a 6.5. I'd give him just above average.
6.5. Okay, sorry. There you go. Yeah, okay. I don't know, man. I would have gone 5 because...
You've gone 5?
Yeah, I'm going to be quite harsh on a lot of these attackers, You're maybe in for something because I'm like, we played Blackburn, who rotated their defense. Not full of it, but still. And the only goals we scored was the goalkeeper doing like this one, and then the other time they just passed it to us 25 meters from their goal. Otherwise, outside of the penalty that we should have had, we were nowhere near scoring when it wasn't Reece James. Like, Jackson wasn't anywhere near scoring. Palmer wasn't anywhere near scoring. Sterling wasn't anywhere near scoring outside of his goal, obviously. And Gallagher didn't even look like he got anywhere near the goal all night, even though he played as a number 10. So I'm going to be quite critical of these forwards. Again, obviously you have to, at least me, I'm not saying you have to, but for me, you have to kind of judge it a little bit judged by who the opponent is. Like, we are Chelsea Football Club, and this is kind of our best team. And we didn't really create much against Blackburn. And Blackburn, they didn't even park the bus, so you can't even say it's our usual problems. They actually tried to play out from the back, and we still didn't really create much, if we're being perfectly honest here. So, yeah, by the way, the draw is supposed to happen soon. I don't know how it hasn't happened yet because the United-Newcastle game finished half an hour ago, and it was supposed to be after that. So I don't know what's happening. But yeah, in terms of Gallagher, 1 out of 8 ground duels, that's really poor. 1 out of 8 ground duels. 3 out of 8 crosses, it's not great either. 1 out of 4 dribbles, all right. The passing is decent, 93%, 63 out of 68. Yeah, I would have gone 5, mate, honestly.
But it might be because I think toward the second half, he was better offensively. He had a couple down the left-hand side, And I might not judge him as harshly offensively because I see him as more of a midfielder. I think if you see him more of a cam, I think it would be more, critical. I think you'd be right to be more critical. I think it might just be the way we think of his role in the team in a way.
Yeah.
But pressing wise, I would agree the fact that it was quite disappointing.
Yeah, there you go. I'm not sure because I can't do another poll straight away because, give the people time to vote for Enzo's rating. So I guess a 5 and a 6.5 leaves us somewhere between a 5.5 and a 6. I'll give it a 6 for now, and we'll see what ratings the other guys get from us as a collective. I'm being nice here because I almost want to see it's my chance to 5.5. I'm going to say 6 for now because... Yeah, but I don't know, man.
The positive vibes.
Yeah, positive vibes. I guess it just wasn't.
I could be brought down to 6. Would which would in turn bring us down to a 5.5. I think that would be be fair.
I took that very quickly. Did you notice? You're like, I could go down to a 6 immediately.
Fair enough. Just bring it through.
Exactly. Okay. I think we're better now, but hey, obviously, you go with what you want to go with. Like I say, it's just. He didn't really win many duels. Like I say, 1 out of 8 is just really poor. In no matter what, arguably you think that's more poor than me because you see him more as a midfielder. It's not like I don't see him as a midfielder. It's more like, Poch played him as a 10, especially when Palmer has to play as the winger. Then Gallagher has to be active in attack because otherwise, because Palmer will come into the middle as well. That means. He needs another person coming up to fill in. Obviously, Reece James pushed up, but that wasn't happening all the time. So you needed another body in that attacking area. Otherwise, what if we come to attacking with 2 or 3 players against fucking Blackburn? But then again, we don't score goals, so no wonder why, really. But anyway, we'll move on and we'll get to Cole Palmer first. A lot of praise for Cole Palmer at the moment today. And all of it rightly so. Got the assist for the second goal. Even though it wasn't an intentional pass, he still intercepted the ball. And then from his interception, it fell to Sterling, who then scored really well. But yeah, he's just a phenomenal player. The way he turns, he's not the fastest, but he still manages to beat players in a 1v1 situation, manages to dribble past people. His crossing today was unfortunately poor. 0 out of 3. But otherwise, I just love him as a player. And honestly, someone said much earlier in the stream, in the chat, here it is. I saved it. Callum Simpson. Can we give City another 40 million for Palmer? I genuinely feel bad. I genuinely feel it because when you compare it to a lot of the other players and what we paid for all of those, and then you look at Palmer, and other than Enzo, Palmer looks better than miles better than every single one of them that we paid triple times. Even obviously very different positions, but Caicedo hasn't stood out as such in a single game yet. He goes to 115 million. Palmer stands out every time he goes on the pitch.
Same with Badiashile as well.
And Badiashile. So you can't even say it's just because he's an attacker. Ashraf says Disasi 5, Gallagher 5.5 makes no sense. I mean, I would have given Disasi 4 and Gallagher 5, so there you go. It still makes no sense to you.
Take it. I'll take it.
No. It's all good. Sometimes
the positive vibes.
Exactly. But yeah, Cole Palmer, big up you. And as crazy as I'm still not giving him more than a 6.
What?
Okay, 6. I'm saying 6.5. Yeah, like I said, bro, he didn't create nothing other than all his crosses were up. He played well.
Yeah.
But it's still Blackburn, man. Look what he did against Arsenal. I can't give him a 7.5, 8 when he did this against Blackburn when I compare what he did to Arsenal.
Yeah. I would have gone much higher personally.
I know. Well, after you gave Gallagher 6.5, obviously you have to go higher for Palmer.
Yeah, crazy. I give him the same rating. I think, from my point of view, he was, pretty much our only creative outlet for most of the game.
I agree.
I think he was the only one, trying to do something. And I thought, when he had a good link up with Reece James as well. But it's a combination of the fact that I thought he was very dangerous when he got on the ball. And he had a couple of very, very good passes as well, especially in the first half. Where he kind of, he almost gave it it was almost like the final pass, the one he had against Brighton, where Jackson wasn't quite able to hold it up, or Sterling wasn't quite able to get on, or something like this.
Even against Brentford, the one against for Cucurella, that was a gorgeous pass.
Exactly. And I just think when you look at him play, you can see he's a good player. And it might be that I'm getting biased from today, but even when I'm looking at his FODMAP rating, who gave him an 8, I would have given him somewhere near an 8 as well. For me personally, he was my man of the match. And when I'm doing the stream, sometimes I don't always know why I choose them. I can just, based off a feeling, I just thought when I watched the game, he was the best player we had because offensively he was the only one making it tick.
To be fair, from that perspective, I even agree. As weird as that now sounds, right? I just felt Enzo did all the things that a midfielder can do. He even had shots. Okay, he didn't score, but he was dangerous in terms of nearly scoring. He was dangerous in nearly assisting, and he controlled the game for us. When I look at then Parma, on the other hand, he was great, and he was the only creative outlet, like you say, but he never nearly scored. Or maybe there was one moment where
he had one. He had a save.
Yeah, he did have that one. Okay, well, I was getting myself something to drink, so I didn't.
That was fair enough.
Maybe that's one of the things why I went quite as low now. But still, so he had that one moment, and creatively he tried, but he never really got that close to setting anything up. So I'm like looking at all the things Enzo did and looking at all the things Palmer did. I wouldn't go quite as high, but maybe I've gone a bit harsh, even though someone in the chat agreed. So you would have gone 8.5 as well, or
I would have gone an 8, which makes no sense because I gave him Enzo an 8.5. 8, but I think
so. Are you telling me we need to give Enzo an 8?
In a way,
I think you can if you want to, bro. You can. I'm not.
I think I'd give him an 8.5, but Palmer's still my man of the match in a way.
The poll is currently heavily going towards an 8 for Enzo anyway. So unfortunately,
so I think stats wise, Enzo definitely beats him. But I think we also forget what didn't he press? It was quite a decent press for the assist as well from Palmer.
Yeah, it was phenomenal. It was brilliant,
and then played it through. He's just so good. Yeah, as they touched.
Obviously, you've got to remember, if I give Gallagher a 5, a 6.5 for Palmer looks quite good in comparison.
It does. But I think,
if you give Gallagher a 6.5, I'd probably agree with an 8 for Palmer. For that 0.5 for that 1.5 different type vibe. Shall we say 7.5 then? Because
I think that would be fair if we give Enzo an 8 as well.
Yeah, we Enzo has the 8. I guess Palmer gets a 7.5. Even though the chat did it anyway, I get the overall, I guess, on Enzo, and you get the overall on Palmer. We'll go with that. And to be fair, you did come closer to me for Gallagher, so I'll let you have the Palmer one.
And no doubt we should give them a 40 mil again. They've definitely had their KDB moment if he continues this.
That is true.
It's going to be very interesting when we see what Poch is in plans for when Nkunku comes back. So having those two together, if we stick him on the right, if we stick Palmer on the right and Nkunku in the middle, it's going to be creative. It's going to be the dream. If we have a half decent striker, we might be in business.
Yeah, literally. I mean, it would be beautiful, wouldn't it?
We're Chelsea. We can't have that. So.
No, of course we can't. That's a whole separate thing. Let me just highlight this comment here. First, Ashraf said Bayern director just cooked his team via Fabrizio, and then director Freund, so the guy we wanted to bring in from Salzburg, but he said no to us. Bayern director Freund, this is just unacceptable. I don't understand how you can play such a bad first half. Which is funny because in the first half, I think they were leading, or maybe it was 0-0 because Bayern lost to a third division team in Germany in the 90th minute, which is kind of hilarious. So
fantastic.
Unlucky Thomas Tuchel. But hey, here it is. We'll get to the Carabao Cup potential opponents and results in a little bit as well. We're nearly done here. Anyway, Raheem Sterling. It's going to be another one who I'm going to be quite harsh on because he scored a good goal. The finish was really nice. But I tweeted it in the first half and I stand by it. I said it after 18 minutes, get Sterling off. And next time, when you can't be asked, just stay at home. Because that's what I felt like. Yes, there was moments when he got the ball and he looked like when it seemed to me like when he saw an opportunity to do something in attacking areas, he was on it. He was like, yeah, I'm involved. But tracking back, didn't want to hear any of it. Zero. Wanted to hear none of it. And also, the amount of times we had transition moments, because Blackburn, compared to most other lower league teams, lesser teams, they actually gave us space to counter in moments. Sterling gets the ball, runs 5 meters, stops. I'm like, mate, you're faster than all of their players put together. Just run fucking past them. You're Raheem Sterling. What are you doing? It's just outrageous. I mean, I wouldn't maybe go quite as low as Ashraf here, considering he did still score a goal. But even though he scored, I'm not giving him higher than a 6. I feel like because he scored, and the 2-0 was important, because if it's 1-0 for much longer, who knows what happens in this game, and we could bottle it. So it was still an important goal, hence why I'm still going to give him a 6. But I think outside of the goal, he was and the penalty that he should have won if the referee had eyeballs or if there was VAR. But the whole, I mean, you touched on it earlier in terms of the opponent, right? Do they try less because of this? And today, that was written all over Sterling's face. It almost seemed like to me he was a little bit annoyed that they had to play today. And I'm like, mate, next time, just stay at home. I don't care. Tell the manager you don't want to play. He might not play you ever again, but I'd rather that than you not bothering. At the same time, he scored an important 2-0. And that's literally Raheem Sterling's Chelsea career in a nutshell. We are like, 80% of it has been bad, but then there's 20% of outstanding moments where you're like, this is why we need him. And yeah, this is the frustrating part about Sterling. See, if Sterling was 22, I wouldn't be critical of him at all. But because he is their leader in attack that we have, because all the other experienced players are Thiago Silva, and he's a centre-back. And then Sterling is the next oldest player that we have. I need more from him. And this kind of not bothering for these types of games is a serious problem. And I read such an interesting thing from John Terry that when we lost the Carabao Cup game to Man City, and Rafa Benitez came in and was like, okay, we lost, but we go again in the weekend. And apparently John Terry stood up and was like, are you saying it's acceptable that we just lost? And they were literally like going, like confronting each other. He was like, maybe that's acceptable at Liverpool, but it certainly is not acceptable at Chelsea. And like it had to be John Terry that put that standard up. And I know I'm often one of the guys that, like, I'm not sure, some people might have seen it on Twitter. Pice was like saying, Poch, why is he saying, it's difficult to say what a good season for us is from this point onwards. While I say on the other hand, I'm like, yeah, but what's the point in the manager just lying to me and saying, oh yeah, we want to get top 4 and win the league? Like, because look where we are. We're clearly not doing either. Let's be honest now. But Poch did say exactly that in the summer. So I'm like, well, did you prefer being lied to, or do you prefer them being honest? Like, which one is it? But at the end of the day, it's still a serious problem for me. The lack of leadership and the few experienced players that we do have. Yeah, sure, Thiago Silva, but no one in midfield, no one in attack that's going to bring that demand for excellence, for perfection, for results at every moment, at every time. And Sterling just isn't that, and that's a frustrating part about him, but obviously doesn't affect the rating on the pitch today. But it's an overall issue I have with Sterling, if that makes sense. But you've gone quite a bit higher for these attackers on all of them compared to me. Is that then, would you then go higher for Sterling as well because he scored, or do you also think that outside of the goal there was a lot of poor moments?
Well, I think you've touched upon some of the important themes regarding Sterling, especially these last couple of games. I think against Brentford as well, when the goal they scored with the throw-in where he wasn't bothered to make the run back, and if he does that, we probably don't concede. So it is very frustrating. I think for his first half, he would I'd give him a L'Equipe, final rating for like Giroud, just a not active, non-present, or whatever they wrote. I think other than the penalty, which we probably could have got, but I just didn't notice him. And being one of the senior players, as you touched on, he didn't look like he wanted to play. So I think credit where credit's due. I think he did play a very good second half. He muscled off one of their guys and played a tap in or crossfield ball for Jackson, who didn't want to score today. So and he scored, and he did score the goal, which is he is the one guy for us who is able to do that, to make that finish. So I think his second half would warrant a higher rating. His first half though was very dreadful. So I think giving the fact that he did score and he did score an important goal, I think I would give him a 6 as well, just barely. But it was a dreadful first half, and it is very frustrating seeing the fact that he isn't bothered to make these runs back, because I think maybe if we're 2-1 up against Arsenal in the last couple of minutes, he might make that run. But you'd want to see him, as being one of the senior players, showing as well the character, making that run back and signaling to the others that this is Chelsea. Here we do things till the end and we win each game, because maybe they score one of those chances and we're sitting here, we've gone out to Blackburn and it's frustrating and annoying and stuff like this. So I hope him being one of the senior players can instill the culture that we have to work for each other here. But for my rating, I give him a 6. I think the goal and his overall second half, it really pulls him up.
There you go. Fair enough. And let's get to Nicolas Jackson then. He's been under quite heavy criticism these last few days since the Brentford game. And he's also been very heavily criticised from a lot of fans today. interestingly, highest passing accuracy of anyone. He completed all but one pass, 22 out of 23, which actually quite good for the way, because considering he does a lot of flick passes and stuff, which are difficult to pull off. But the ground duel, 3 out of 8, mate, you're strong. You're a reasonably big striker. You were good at this in pre-season. Where has it gone? But my main issue is, it's just the Chelsea curse, man. It's just the Chelsea curse. A striker comes here, they have, you see a spark of what they can achieve, and the longer they are here, they don't even know what a first-time finish anymore. They don't know anymore. They don't know where the goal is. Like I say, he gets the ball from crosses. He controls it. Takes way too long to shoot. Then he falls to him again. He tries to toe poke it with like 0.0 miles an hour. Well, I'm like, it's just, Jackson has good attributes. And then he starts trying to be Cristiano Ronaldo of 2007 and does weird stepovers by the sidelines for absolutely no reason, which, okay, you can dribble, mate. Fantastic. But the problem is you're playing striker. So fucking score. And he, to me, the more I'm seeing him, the more I just feel like he just doesn't understand how a striker needs to move. And he can counterattack, and then every now and again, he will take a chance. But when you're not counterattacking, the more and more I see of him, and he could still change it. He could improve. He could just be in a bad run of form. Sure. But what he's doing right now, he's a complete waste. Like, he's a complete waste of a player to have on a pitch, because he does actually well when he drops deep. He received the ball well. He laid it off or won fouls. Did that really well. But then the movement to get back in the box is just not there. He doesn't have that instinct. I need to get in the box. I need to get in the end of balls. He just doesn't have it, and it's really, really frustrating. And I don't even know what to give him, because there was decent part of his game. It's just none of them that are part of being a striker. Well, part of it, sure, but not the main ones about being a striker. Finishing, movement, like last pass. It was all like dropping deep and laying it off. Sure, it's nice that you're good at that, but you're like Giroud with pace, but that doesn't understand how to move in the box. You know? And it's just like, it's baffling.
Giroud with pace, yeah.
Giroud with pace, which you'd think is the best striker of all time, but then just without striker instincts is the problem. And without half the touch, obviously, of Giroud, because Giroud technically is obviously a wonderful player. But yeah, Jackson, I'm not sure I'm going to give it as low as the chat said, but I still think I'm going to say 4. I don't think what did he do that deserves higher? Like, genuinely, he didn't get anywhere near scoring, didn't get anywhere near assisting. The amount of times he got over the top through balls and either messed up the touch or messed up the second touch. It's like, for a Chelsea striker, it's not a lot at the moment.
I think you touched upon a lot of the issues as well. I'd be quite harsh here. I'd give him a 3. I thought, just watching, the overall game, I thought he didn't really do anything, if I'm honest. Other than the fact that he missed, he had the one where I think it was Reece James who cut it through, and him and Cole Palmer kind of just like standing on top of each other. Yeah. Didn't really know what to do. And he had, quite a decent chance which Sterling created for him, which I touched upon before as a chance where he kind of just skied it over. I think it is very interesting when, the type of player he is, because he is very raw. I still have the feeling that there could be something there, but he needs to work for it.
Jump in with a question there. How do you, because obviously everyone sees this a little bit differently. To me, there's certain things that when you watch a player, certain things that I'm like, okay, that's you being raw. And certain things I'm like, if they're not there, you're never going to have them. And instinct and movement of a striker in the box, to me, is one of those things. Like, Broja has it. Broja might not be perfect at everything, but Broja knows where to be in the box and knows how to strike a ball, like a striker should. And Jackson doesn't have those things. And I'm just not sure if those are the kind of things that if you don't have them now, you will ever have. Well, there's other things that can be taught and learned and improved, all of fair. But there's certain things that I'm like, if I don't see them, I'm not sure I'll ever see them, if that makes sense. Where do you stand on that in terms of things like movement and striker's instinct and stuff?
Yeah, we've just been drawn in the cup.
Have we? Okay.
At home.
At home? Okay, that's nice.
Newcastle. Okay.
Brilliant.
It's at home. I suppose it's fine. I think, yeah.
We can't. I mean, it's the quarterfinal now. You can't. Obviously, Port Vale is still in it, but
I suppose. Okay,
There you go.
we beat them. We take it to a double leg semi. It's fine. Okay, we can beat Newcastle. We need to stop acting like this.
We can absolutely beat Newcastle.
but
Especially,
on the question,
don't forget, they have. I mean, this is on the 18th of December, so by then they won't have Champions League anymore either. To be
God,
fair,
that's late. Yeah, I suppose we would have won all of our games until then. But we
and
play
also,
better against.
Cucurella might be back by then, so we might be the best team in the world.
That we'll have some other injury. Enzo and Caicedo are out or something like that. No, on the question you had on
Port Vale versus Middlesbrough instead. Fuck's sake, Port Vale. What division of Port Vale in? Are they Championship or League One these days? I don't know. But
definitely league, one of the leagues.
How is that one of the draws? That's ridiculous.
In the quarterfinal, could be a good semi though.
Yeah, West Ham, by the way, knocking out Arsenal today. We'll get into the results in a minute, and then we'll look at the draws. Just finish off the Jackson topic for me, Bajam.
I think when we looked at like the Thiago Silva header across the box, it is very frustrating that he isn't there. I still think you can learn it. I still think it could perhaps take, us perhaps signing a veteran striker, a Giroud type as Thiago Silva undoubtedly has probably learned.
Good luck with this ownership signing a veteran.
No, yeah, but like just someone who has these instincts in a way. As Thiago Silva undoubtedly has probably taught Badiashile and Cole a thing or two. But when I talk about him being raw, I think there's a very fast player who has a shot in him, which we saw from his Villarreal days. He's very good at link-up play as well. He still has a physical presence. It's still decent in tackle. Might have some disciplinary issues. Getting these stupid yellow cards. He should get fixed. But
he hasn't got one since then, to be fair.
Exactly. So maybe he's got an earful from Poch, but
apparently he got that earful already before he got the last one that suspended him, though.
It's kind of like the Mourinho story. But what was it? I think he still makes good runs into the box. I think he had one against Liverpool. He had one that he missed, of course, and he had one against the one against Nottingham Forest, which I can't believe he still missed. He still had one today. I think we would need, because we haven't really had a settled front line for a long while. Mm-hmm. So we would need him to play with, now we've chosen Sterling on one wing, Palmer on the other. We would need to have a settled front line for them to understand, where to put the cutbacks, or if it's going to be a pass along, in front of the goal, like his goal against from Gusto's assist against Luton. So I think it would both take, us playing with the same attackers to get them to learn each other, but I think if he works on his movement, and if he works on just being in the box and gets told, okay, you might be able to do all these things, but sometimes we just need you to be in the box. I think he could, in a sense, I think he could be very good for us because he has the other attributes. But I do see the fact that, some of the best strikers like Giroud, they just had that instinct, and they just, they just had it. So that is quite worrying, but we've had absolute donkeys up front who, sometimes they knew where to stand, but, like a Morata who sometimes got to tap in, but were dreadful in other areas. So I think he at least gives us something whenever he, even though he misses a couple chances, he still gives you something, if that makes sense.
Something.
But today he was dreadful and deserves a terrible rating.
Yeah, he does. He does. Let's finish it off quickly in terms of the subs. We did make quite a lot of subs for once. Doesn't happen all the time, but we did today. Obviously, with a few returnees from injury. Diva Koval came on for Badiashile. Honestly, I've got to keep it quite short today with these subs because it's like, let's not overcomplicate things and give ratings to subs that don't need them. I might just leave a lot of them just as subs, right? What was the last two subs? Palmer and Enzo.
Mudryk came on and Matos came on. And I think they didn't really do anything.
No. Honestly, I don't even think we're going to give any of these a rating just because I want to keep it a bit shorter and talk quickly about the draw and stuff.
Yeah.
I just want to have one quick conversation about the subs. And that is that in the 76th minute at 2-0 against the championship team, we took off our striker, Nicolas Jackson, and replaced him with Moises Caicedo. We took a striker off and brought a number 6 on. I know Broja isn't fit. I know we don't have a normal backup striker there or a normal other striker, but David Washington was on the bench. And David Washington was also used against Brentford. So to me, and I'm not saying it's obviously the reason, but to me, it's no surprise that we talk about we struggle to score goals when this is the type of mindset that the manager instills in the team. That being 2-0 up against a championship team, and in a situation where what our main problem is scoring goals, that you don't tell them, go for a third, go for a fourth, go for the kill, gain some confidence, get some goals in. No, what we do is take the striker off and bring a 6 on. And to me, that just shows the completely wrong impetus to the team, the completely wrong instinct and mentality. And I'm sure this doesn't change anything about winning. And it's not like the biggest deal in the world. But I still think when we complain about that we can't score for the life of us, you need to look at where those problems start and where they stem from. And I think this isn't the reason, but this is an example of why I'm not surprised that we're not killers, and we haven't been since Diego left, really, because Hazard wasn't a killer either. Really, since Antonio Conte left, we didn't have that killer instinct of someone like, you need to go for it. Like, even though Conte had a pragmatic approach to football as well, it wasn't like I want to win 5-0 every game. But it still felt like we don't have that intensity to we want to score. And I don't think we will ever compete with a team like Man City, because that's why they are so good. Because they are not happy with a 2-0. They are always striving to improve, while we are happy with a 2-0 against Blackburn. And then I'm like, how are you ever going to catch it up? Did you see where I'm coming from with that, Patrick? Because a few people on Twitter have had a go at me like, oh, just enjoy the win. Don't always find something to complain about. But I'm like, but it still shows how the manager and the team think to take a striker off for a number 6. And it wasn't 2 minutes to go. It was 15 minutes to go. And I just think that's the completely wrong way to go about it. Where do you stand on that?
I think logically your argument, it makes sense. And, from a purely, what you call it, theoretical point of view, it also makes sense. I think the argument makes sense. I'm thinking if it has the effect that we might think it has on them, if it does have that effect, that it takes away this killer instinct. Because I think Man City, whenever they play these cup games, I rarely think they beat teams more than 2 or 3-0. Even like Port Vale.
No, but they try though. That's the difference. I'm not saying you have to always do it, but you try. And taking a striker off for a 6 is the opposite of that.
I can see that, but at the same time, I think if you look at the team we had, you touched upon Broja before. I think if we'd had a recognized second striker who isn't an 18-year-old David Washington, and I understand the fact that we did use him against Brentford, which I also thought was quite weird, seeing as we didn't use him in this game, but just also signaling out that I think I lost my train of thought. No, it was
about the subs and the approach and stuff.
Exactly. I think looking at the personnel we had, just taking the win, getting some of our players off, because had Jackson got injured, we would have had a massive problem.
I have no. Sorry, let me just clarify that to you and the.
You mean like the subs that come on?
It's not my problem that Jackson comes off. I even understand that, because Barry isn't fit. He needs to play again Monday. He had his hand injury. I understand, no problem. But bring Washington on. You can even bring Caicedo on for Enzo. Bring Caicedo on for Ugochukwu. I'm also not saying don't bring Caicedo on. I'm just saying don't bring a striker. Don't take a striker off for a centre defensive midfielder. Yeah,
I see that, but I still think in a way, I think it was wrong to use Washington against Brentford, but because I don't think he's ready. But then it's also wrong to have him on the bench.
How does he ever get ready if he doesn't get given these games? Same as with Petrovic. We're back to that conversation.
Exactly, but I think it is a very weird debate, because I do agree with you in a sense. But
You're
I also
just trying
don't think
to find explanations for why it also could make sense the way it is done, I guess.
Exactly, because I did see the fact that we brought Caicedo on for Jackson, and it didn't really make sense, even though we did create chances, off the back of it. I think the Palmer chance was just after that substitution. Mm-hmm. I also think, I've always thought this as well, that even though you can use players sometimes, you shouldn't always do it. So even though you can sub this 18-year-old kid on, it's not always the right thing to do, because maybe he has a bad experience with coming on. It sits in his mind. He might not be as confident when he comes on. Or maybe even, you sub him on because you have the chance, but he hasn't really earned it. He hasn't really, killed himself in training to to earn, getting played on. So I think there are reasons not just to throw people on because it is. I think in this situation as well, it was very weird, just us playing without a recognized striker. I think the game pretty much being done would have been fine for Washington. So explanation-wise, I think those could be some of them. But in the end, shutting up shop, I think, wasn't the worst thing to do against the crisis in the situation we're in now. Just shutting up shop, getting the win. They didn't really have any chances off the back of it as well.
And they had more of a chance after that, with obviously that Disasi mistake and the Sanchez save, than they did ever before. Not before, because they had that big chance just after half time, but they didn't have a single shot on target until then in the second half.
Exactly.
So, yeah,
I think in this situation, I would just take the win and move on. But I do see where you're coming from.
I appreciate also the like I say, the trying to explain it and without looking at a negative side of it.
But had it been one goal, I would have been much more bullish on it, because one goal still.
Yeah, at one goal, it probably doesn't even take Jackson off, rather than bringing Washington on instead. But
because one goal is just one cross in your back, to square one. So
against Arsenal, we did it with two, and it still ruined us. Do you know what I mean? So,
don't remind me of the Arsenal game, please.
Exactly. But yeah, Colwell did fine. Gusto did fine. Could have scored towards the end. Caicedo, sure, and then Mudryk came at us. We're just going to leave it at that. Let's quickly bring up the results of tonight in the EFL Cup, and then we'll look at all the draw. Obviously, yesterday, Exeter lost to Middlesbrough, and Port Vale beat Mansfield Town. Let's check what league Port Vale are in.
I think it's League One.
Well, let's see if I can say it anywhere.
Just there. League One.
There you go. Yeah, there you go. So third division. So we could have had a third division team. Instead, we got Newcastle. Brilliant. Anyway, Arsenal lost 3-1 to West Ham, which is fun. At half-time,
right.
West Ham were 1-0 up, even though they had an XG of 0.00 because Benoit scored an own goal. So that's funny. Liverpool got past Bournemouth. It was 1-1 at some point, but still they prevailed. Everton beating Burnley very comfortably with a 3-0 win. Fulham beating Ipswich. And Manchester United losing at home 3-0 to Newcastle, which is kind of crazy. And honestly, I think Ten Hag is getting the sack very soon, but we'll see about that one. And then in terms of the draw for the upcoming round, like I said, will happen on the 18th and 19th or 17th and 18th of December. Everton against Fulham. So that's a Premier League tie, as well as Chelsea versus Fulham. Then you've got Port Vale against Middlesbrough, League One against Championship. And then another All Premier League tie with Liverpool and West Ham. Now, there is one easy semi-final there. It won't be us that gets it if we go through. But there is one easier semi-final there. But yeah, there you go. Obviously, it could have been worse with Liverpool. It could have been worse with having Newcastle away. But it couldn't have been, all the other options would have been better. Everton would have been better. Fulham would have been better. West Ham. West Ham is difficult. West Ham away would have been really difficult. Maybe West Ham away is on a par with Newcastle at home. It kind of it's so difficult because now it's November 1st today. And we're playing this game on December 18th. A lot of things can happen between now and then. There's 7 weeks. Everything can change. We'll have players back. We'll be in completely different form. Everything can be different. But talking about it right now, difficult game. Not impossible to win, but difficult game. And yeah, I mean, your perspective as well could have been a bit worse, but also could have clearly been better.
I think the issue is
Newcastle have now knocked City and United out, which is
Yeah, I think in a sense it is okay. I almost would have preferred Liverpool in a way because we always seem to draw against them at least. But the fact that our schedule isn't that messed up at that point is fine. We have Sheffield the game before, we have the hopeless Wolves game the week after. So having a good team in there, I suppose it is what it is. We would have had to face, one of these teams at least to win it anyway. So I think it being at home was definitely good for us. And perhaps, I think we look at it, we normally perform better against good teams. We only lost 1-0 to them last year with that horrific team we set out. So I think it's going to be okay. But I think in this competition, I think it would have been very unlikely for us to just luck it through. So the good thing is it's so far out of the future that
although to be fair, because we had Brighton already, we already had the tough draw. To be fair,
that is true, and it was home as well. But the good thing is we're out of that. We're out of the woods of that really, really tough period we're up against now. So I think having a good team in there in a sense is okay. But Port Vale at home would not have been the worst thing. Or,
No.
maybe the whole city of Port Vale is like Wales. It's not a real city, I think. It might be. There's something about
You're
it.
asking me questions, mate. As an Austrian and a Dane talking about
I
where
think
the fuck Port Vale is.
I swear Port Vale isn't a real city. There's something about it. But yeah, I think they would have brought the whole city with them as well. So maybe Newcastle with bigger fish to fry would be
Based
good.
in
But
Burslem, Stoke-on-Trent. So it's from essentially a part of Stoke. Imagine you're from Stoke and you're not even the biggest club in Stoke.
Port Vale. I might be yeah, Port Vale. Yeah, it's the second biggest club in Stoke. I would have been good.
Yeah, there you go. Well, fair enough. I mean, Ashraf, this does make a fair point. Our home form is terrible. So from that perspective, getting them at home maybe not be the best idea. But then again, we've played 3 home games so far in this competition. We've won all of them.
They do have Champions League 6 days before when they have the final game, so they might invest a lot in that.
Yeah, and they will also still need it if they still. I mean, they might not have a chance to go through anymore, but they probably will. So, yeah, that could play in our favor as well. At the same time, they might just sit the Prem game out, right, and then be back against us in the Cup. All these players that play in the Champions League for them. So, yeah,
hopefully not.
Could also go against us. But yeah, even though our home form is terrible, I'd still much rather play Newcastle at home than at St James's Park. First of all, it saves us the travel, and second of all, not just yes, our home form might be bad, but their home form is so good that we're more likely to win even still with our bad home form, I would say. But yeah, ladies and gentlemen, I think it's about time we wrap this one up. This took longer than I thought. I don't really know why. We just had a lot to discuss, apparently. And then obviously the draw took quite long, so we just discussed that at the end as well. But yeah, Bertram, thank you very much for joining me. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for tuning in. Subscribe if you haven't already. We're into the quarterfinals against Newcastle United at Stamford Bridge in late December, just before Christmas. So we'll see how the next few weeks and months go, because oh boy, we could be standing here by Christmas thinking we're absolutely on top of the world, or we could get relegated. So let's see which one of the two it is. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you guys for watching. Up to Chelsea, upwards and onwards, and we'll see you next time.